SMS.
Hi, Teresa, long time no see.
Hi, how are you, Manhong?
You still remember my name? Oh, God.
Of course.
What's that?
I was on another call and I was like, oh my God, I have to get off this call.
No, I thought I got the whole thing wrong, you know.
It's 6 o'clock.
All right, so we are short on time today. We have a lot to cover, so I'll just start with the community meeting and we'll hope everyone else will join while we're going through the introduction and the approach. Thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to kick off this community visioning process with all the stakeholders in this room today. If you go to the next slide, Isabella. This meeting is the first of the many meetings that we will have this week. I'm Priyanka Jain, joined by 3 more facilitators from the 3x3 team to facilitate the meeting today. Isabella Gaddy, Jin Lee, and JD Chen. And we will later in the meeting breaking everyone down into smaller groups so we can have a constructive dialogues, and each one of us will join one group to facilitate the discussion there. Next slide. The meeting will last for 2 hours and we'll cover introductions, the process that we took to design the community visioning process, and then we'll assign 90 minutes to activities and discussion, for which, like we said, we'll break the whole group into smaller groups and then close the meetings with sharing our next steps with you. We understand a lot of people are there in the room who already know a lot about this, but we'll request you to be patient so we can share the information with the people in the room who might not be aware. Also, thank you for sharing all the documents that you shared through the survey and other channels. We will use them when we gather all this information together and analyze it. But today we'll ask you to respect the workshop outline that we've designed for you to gather your feedback. With that, I'll pass it over to Isabella to take you through the introduction and the community visioning process.
Thank you, Priyanka.
They're hired facilitators.
Oh, it seems very young.
They are. We hired them at Two Bridges. They were terrible. So,
it would be great if it would be possible for you to mute yourself if you're in a noisy background. Thank you. So we were excited to have you all join this evening. As Priyanka already mentioned, we'll be giving a brief introduction just on the background of 70 Mulberry Street, because again, we are not assuming that maybe everyone has the same kind of knowledge or background on the building itself. So you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page before you get started. And to give you a bit of a overview as well in the process, we want to let you know and be transparent about what this process is all about. So this process, and particularly the emphasis on the community visioning, is part of the wider effort and the commitment of the city to rebuild 70 Mulberry Street. And the goal for this particular process is to come up with an idea and an option on the future site of 70 Mulberry Street. And particularly for like this portion of like the participation, is important to the city, is important to us to gather as many insights as possible from the community itself. So to get the ideas, to get some of the concerns that you're having, to get some of maybe also the aspirations that you have for the building. So we have grouped this into 3 different areas: the role within the community, the building design and the construction, as well as the program and service offerings of the future building. Of course, there are many more, and you're always invited to really add to this conversation as well. And as a little bit of a background to 70 Mulberry Street, as you all know, the 70 Mulberry Street has always played a very pivotal role in shaping Chinatown's local community characters. We have included a photo here to the right where you can see the building before the fire. And we also want to share a little bit of like the current offerings that you have of the different service and program offerings of the different tenants of 70 Mulberry Street that are still ongoing as part, but unfortunately not in the building. So you can see the Gen Dance Center that has been providing and moving experiences for the Asian American history through contemporary dance and artistic creation, arts and education presentation. You can also see the Museum of Chinese in America, really through preservation, presenting history and heritage, culture and diverse experiences of people of Chinese descent in the United States. You also have the United East through providing education and athletic programs to develop leadership and responsibility and teamwork. And you have, of course, CPC by empowering Asian American immigrants and low-income communities in New York with access to resources so they can strive. And you have CMP by supporting new immigrants and first-time job seekers with the necessary tools to enhance their employability. And then, as you all are aware, there was a fire in January 2020. The 5-story building was severely damaged and destroyed parts of the building, especially the upper 3 floors. And this is why we're all here and why we are sitting here together and are thinking about what the future of the building could look like. In July 2020, the mayor actually announced a commitment of $80 million of funding to rebuild 70 Mulberry Street. And part of that commitment was also the 3-month community visioning process to ensure that the community, the local community, gets a say and has inputs in the development of the future site. And there was a promise attached to that, which meant that all former tenants are actually able also to return after the building has been rebuilt. And for you, I think for everyone maybe who is outside of the process weekly meetings, for you to know that there's also an advisory committee that has been established, and we as the facilitators of this process are working very closely with the advisory committee. The advisory committee consists of the 5 tenants that I formally introduced, and has also representatives appointed by the Congresswoman and Nadia Velasquez, by Manhattan Board President Thea Brewer, by State Senator Brian Kavanagh, by State Assemblywoman Yu Ling Yu, and Council Member Margaret Chen, and Manhattan Community Board number 3. And we, again, with my colleagues, with Priyanka and our 2 facilitators, we are chosen as the independent consultant to also bring transparency to this process and collect your ideas for the inclusion to the future vision. And the process has been initiated by the City of New York. And with that, I just want to share a little bit about the overall process and the opportunities, how you can participate moving forward. Here's an overall overview of what we're doing, and we are a design consultancy social innovation firm. So we have a particular process that we are following. So at the moment, you can see we are in the first and in the left diagram, where you can see the community meetings. This is the first round of the community meetings. It's the listening sessions, where we are really here to listen and gather inputs. In parallel, we have something happening that is of research. So we're collecting documents, maybe seen on the registration, form that you can upload documents and ideas that we are reviewing as part of this process. Also in parallel, we are constructing a survey that hopefully also helps us to really extend the outreach beyond these community meetings. After this week, we will kind of like go also in a small retreat and condense everything that we have heard about and all the different inputs into a first, what we call synthesis. So bring them together and see already where there are certain alignments and maybe where people are or perspectives are in a stark contrast. With that, we will be going back. There will be the second round of community meetings that you can see on the right on your screen. And we will be going back to you and ask for your feedback and inputs again. And all this at the end results into a set of recommendations, which you can see at the far right on your screen, and that will be shared with the city. And here's just the overview. So these are the 4 meetings that are taking place this week. Today's the first one, so we're particularly excited to have you. Today's the meeting of community and industry groups. We have a property owners meeting, we have a small business owners meeting, and we have a meeting for tenants, residents, and service recipients happening on Friday. And as I just mentioned in the process overview, there's more opportunities to join or participate in this process. So today is really just the beginning of a dialogue, and there will be another round of community meetings, a full town hall meeting where really anyone can just come and show up and have a 2-minute say, as well as like a more workshop type of meeting. Then also what we are launching will be a survey. So this survey will also be widely disseminated through the committee, and it's open to any one of the stakeholders as well to participate. And again, what is really important to us and also the city for this process is transparency and understanding of like what this all leads to. So there's something we would like to share so that everyone is aware also what is actually happening with all these inputs and how we working forward with these inputs that we're getting from you. So we are trying to understand today mostly what are the needs and wants moving forward and how can we bring them together and where do we have already some alignment and where maybe there are conflicts currently in the different scenarios that we are potentially developing. So everyone who also participated today will be also will be invited to the second round or is invited to join the second round. But if you know anyone who you think you would want to bring into this process who maybe didn't join through this first round, that person can still join in the second round, or that person can just join the survey. So there's different options. If you have any particular questions about the outreach process per se, feel free to email us anytime. And then a few other things that, especially in the last couple of months, because we have been doing quite a lot of work and workshop work online because of the given circumstances. Usually we would be doing this in person, which makes everything a little bit easier. But unfortunately, currently bound to the digital. And so we have developed a brief etiquette that we found to be working quite well over the last couple of months. And one of them is really that whenever someone speaks up, and I think as my colleague Priyanka already mentioned, you will be in much smaller groups. So we are working in smaller groups to actually get more inputs and to get more depth out of the conversations and to really give everyone the opportunity to say and speak and provide their inputs. So whenever you speak up, please make sure that other group members are aware of who you are. And also, if you're representing a group or an organization, make sure to share that. Something else is just the awareness of this is a community meeting, so we want to make space for everyone to speak up, and making sure that everyone has a chance to speak up, and when others are speaking, to make sure to listen. Something else is we call it the be critical of ideas and suggestions rather than participants. So we expect that there's disagreements on different options to be developed, which is part of this process. It's the same as whenever there will be different options and there's not a single option that will fulfill all the needs that are currently present within the community. but we encourage really to voice your criticism and to also voice your concerns, but to stick always with the suggestion and the idea, rather than like to make it about the person who is maybe putting an idea forward, because we want to create a constructive room. That is very connected with kind of like the open mind mentality. So as I said, there is not probably one outcome that is going to fulfill all the different needs. For that, the needs are just too diverse, and also the aspirations are too diverse. All thinking mode of like, you know, what are the different priorities across the different stakeholder groups? And as I mentioned already, muting yourself if you're in a very noisy background makes it just a little bit easier for everyone else to follow. Also, there's the chat function that you can use if you feel like you don't want to use your microphone, or if you want to say something in particular, or if you want anything to be recorded. We are recording all the conversations. We're also recording all the chat streams. So anything that kind of like goes in here will be part of this process. And as a last thing, is also like there's an option on Zoom to change your name to your preferred name. So we encourage to do that. And sometimes also Zoom has a weird way of like just putting up a number, especially if you're calling in and then we only see the number, which makes it a little bit harder for us to follow up afterwards and like who actually participated. So if you have that option of changing the name of the participant, we would encourage you to do that. And with that, we are actually already getting started. I want to ask quickly if there are any questions before we put you into the small working groups.
Got it. Okay.
Otherwise, I will ask my colleague Priyanka to assign everyone to a working group. So this will take a few moments, and you will find yourself in a much smaller group than you are now.
I had a quick question.
Yes, please.
I was wondering about the outreach for these meetings. I had informed several people about these meetings, and they said they had not heard it from anybody else, including a small property owner that is directly across the street from the building. Like, were there signs put up outside 70 Mulberry Street, or and there are people in our community that are not computer literate. I spoke to one person who looked at the poster and said, "How do I sign up?" So I'm a little bit concerned about the outreach.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. So the outreach mainly is part of the responsibility of the advisory committee. So it went out through all the channels of the advisory committee. We are aware that the access is an issue. So we are having actually tried to integrate a version that is not digital. So with this survey, we do hope to reach others too that are not able to participate in a Zoom meeting. But it is also a concern that we are also taking forward and trying to address throughout the process. I don't know if my colleague Priyanka would want to add anything too.
Yeah, in addition to that, in the second round of meeting, we have a town hall meeting format where we would open it up to everyone who can possibly join, and try to hear from as many people as we can. And whatever concerns you have, do write to us, and we will communicate it to the advisory committee so they can take the necessary steps to make that reach accessible for the second round of meetings.
And maybe just as an example, we had one of our committee members already going into one of the senior homes and collecting inputs as well, and they were shared with us, including them also in the process. So these are all options that are on the table. Unfortunately, we are a bit constrained just given the current environment, but we are thinking through like how to extend it to a broader outreach in the community.
I have my hand raised.
Yes?
What is the meeting capacity per session here? Like tonight, how many people are allowed in? I have some friends who said you reach capacity.
We have 4 rooms with 8 participants each, 1 room specifically dedicated to Cantonese facilitation because that was the demand. So that might have less than 8, but whosoever requested Cantonese facilitation. And then whosoever could not make it today, we did invite them for meeting on Thursday or on Friday. So we still ensured that everyone would participate who registered. It was just a different date.
So basically, this is not open to the general public.
It is open to everyone who registered. We would have a town hall meeting format in November, which would it wouldn't have a waiting room. It would just be open room where anyone can walk in at the last minute as well.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Thank you. Victor?
Yes, hi. One of the things that we're talking about the fate of PS23. Right now, there's no cover on the roof, and the building's slowly being destroyed by the rain. The city spent $6 million to take 3 floors down. While we're talking about the fate of the building, nobody's covering and preserving the rest of the building. In a month or two, that building will be dry rotted, black molded, and you're going to wind up condemning the whole building, which makes this whole process moot unless the city wakes the hell up and does the right thing. Because we're talking about saving this building and they're just letting it die. What's up with that?
We will make a note of that, Victor, but we would really encourage you to make those concerns be known in the smaller group sessions that we have.
Every day the building is getting, like, we had a major rainstorm and a hurricane. Where do you think the water's going?
I understand that, Victor. Let's have this conversation in a smaller group so that everyone has the time and space to let their concerns be known. Colin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to address what Victor had posed. That the construction crew up here today, and they're beginning to put a cap on the roof, but we're talking 4 months of torrential rain neglect here. We're talking serious damage to the stone walls that have taken a tremendous amount of water damage in the last 4 months or so since they stopped demolition back in June. All right, so the city was supposed to cap the roof, cap it at the 3rd floor, cap being a temporary roof, but they only started that process today. So it's it would seem that the intent is to let the building rot, where it's beyond salvageable.
Let me assign everyone to their small groups and we can continue this discussion in this group, okay? So I'm just going to open all the rooms. You will move into different rooms, smaller rooms. Colin and Victor, you have the same concern, you're in the same group, so we'll continue that discussion there.
I'm not sure what's happening.
She's saying that she split it like smaller groups, but I don't know how to do that.
I have no idea. Ian's in charge.
Where are we going to, which group are we?
All right, okay, do you want to continue that discussion? You said Colin and Victor.
Am I in a room now?
Yeah. We
Okay.
left you in the main room. Yeah.
All right. Who's in? I'm sorry. All right. Who am I in the room with? Let me check the participants. It's Priyanka, CPC admin, Eric Cuchilla, Gail Brewer. That looks like the whole. That looks the whole roster. All right.
I can't see you, Carlin. Well, I can see you, Carlin, but I can't see the other people.
Well, you click on the right lower edge of your screen, you'll see participants. So, but I'm not able to see who
Yeah, I
is
can
actually
see
in the room I'm in.
the names of the participants, but I can't see them.
I can't see who's in this particular room that I'm in.
I see.
Yeah. So do you see if you click the participants, you would still be able to see who all is participating. And then I have the slide deck up. Just because you raised that, I've changed the structure of the meeting a little bit rather than since you have so much frustration and anger and pain, I heard you. We'll not go through the warm-up activity first. We'll go through the concerns that you have, right? You're saying that in 2 months is too late, you're saying, right? That there is no roof, and that anything that needs to be preserved is already rotting. That's a concern, right?
Well, basically, hold on. Am I muted? Okay. Well, basically, what I'm saying is the city, the original contract for the demolition started in March, was for the company to take the building down to the 3rd floor and cap it. So they reached the 3rd floor in June, but the city, being DCAS, Department of Citywide Administrative Services, they decided not to cap the building. All right. Now this left the building open to all the elements. You know, we've had torrential downfalls last month, and you know, and all this water damage to that stonework that we're actually fighting to preserve. There is nothing left to preserve of the foundation. We are fighting to preserve the 2 stone walls, the one on Mulberry Street and the one on Bayard Street, and to rebuild it up from there. All right. The foundation has to be dug up new, but you know, this water damage, it may have softened up the stonework. It's porous stone. All right. So, you know, we're thinking, I'm on the belief that the city did this intentionally. Why did the crew appear today and to start capping the building after 4.5 months of damage?
Well,
That's a very valid concern.
This is Richard Moses from Lower East Side Preservation Initiative, and I share Carlin's concern about capping the building and protecting it. I do want to say that, you know, I happen to be an architect who worked on the building many years ago, restoration of the exterior, and I do think it is, you know, as much as it should be protected ASAP, I don't think it's damaged beyond repair at this point, or that it's necessarily going to slide the building into a demolition-only mode. So, you know, the stone is pretty strong. It's been up there for over 100 years. And so I just don't want to nix the possibility of maintaining the existing walls because of the damage that was done due to not capping the building in a timely way.
So that's the primary concern, and we'll definitely communicate that to DCAS after this meeting. I will go back to the higher prompt, right? Full preservation and full demolition. They're 2 extreme ends of a situation that we're dealing with here today, right? There are people, I know in this group, mostly preservationists, people who have a deep knowledge of the history as well as architecture. But what do you think are other elements that should be preserved? What is important? Why is preservation important? Or if you would move on the other scale, why some of the demolition is important? And what are the trade-offs of different approaches?
There is a way to satisfy all, and that is to maintain what remains of the building, maintain the outer walls that remain, stabilize them, restore them, maintain the corner tower, which is one of the most significant architectural elements of the building. And within that envelope, build a new purpose-built building of maybe 6 stories, maybe at the most 8 stories, that would satisfy the needs of all the tenants that were displaced from the building. Then you would still have, in the historic Chinatown core, you would have a physical reminder of the efforts of C.B.J. Snyder, the superintendent of schools, who designed this school building as the first of its type in New York City, and is a model for the 172 buildings that he designed subsequent to that. And what would remain in this community is a physical reminder of the personal and collective history of generations and generations of residents who attended that school and have fond memories of that school and received an education that impacted the rest of their lives.
Excuse me, are we, what is the process for this meeting? Are we just calling out when we want to have something to say, or are we waiting to be called upon based on the raised hands?
We would like it to be open conversation, but since you've already raised hand, why don't you speak first? We want this to be, the reason we had a smaller group is we want the conversation to be fluid, and this is with the understanding that each one of us will not take more than 1 or 2 minutes, so everyone has a chance to speak.
Okay, so we should just speak out, and we don't need to raise our hands.
No, but if it becomes difficult,
Thanks
then
for the question,
we'll.
Haley, because I
Because
had
3 people, you know, have already, you didn't call on them, and I'm not objecting to what they said, but you didn't call on them. So I just want to know the process for this.
Yeah.
I think it would be better to call upon raised hands.
So I'll do that. If that's what the group feels more comfortable with. We have May and Edward. May, do you want to speak first?
Okay, so my name is May Lee. I'm the executive director of the Chinese Progressive Association. We're a community-based organization in Chinatown. We have partnered with almost, well, maybe 2 out of the groups of the organizations that are in, that were in 70 Mulberry Street, mainly the Senior Center downstairs, the Chinese American Planning Senior Center, and also the Chinatown CMP, which is on the 3rd floor, and they're the one who runs the job training programs, because we partnered with them to, you know, on educational programs for the community. And we're also in a summer youth employment program worksite that CMP administers out of the program. So we, you know, so our interest is, you know, I like to, you know, put forth another view, is looking at the full demolition side. Is that what is, I'm interested in seeing those organizations go back into the building ASAP. And as Hong said in one of a previous hearing or meeting, it's what goes inside the building that counts. You know, they change lives, they serve the people. And then there's also, Hong didn't say this, but someone talked about the impact of this current, you know, the way the building is now upon the surrounding community and businesses where they're not getting businesses from the building itself. That's all I have to say for now.
And when you say full demolition, do you mean, would you not want to include the facade, or would you want to?
Well, I'm going to be really frank. I don't really care about the facade. I think the history of the building is important, you know, because it was the first public school, and it's, you know, it means a lot in terms of, you know, the history of Chinatown. But I don't have a particular feeling or, you know, attachment to the facade. But I am attached to what, you know, I do have a feeling about what goes on inside the building and how they are changing the lives of the community at this time. And before.
And okay, thank you so much. Edward, would you want to go next?
Oh, sorry, I'm mute.
Edward? Maybe Susan, do you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. So, you know.
All right, we'll go next, sorry.
Oh, where are you? Are you here?
Yes, this is Edward, but you can go first, Susan.
All right, go ahead. I'll wait for you.
We're all too kind. Okay, my name is Edward Kuchma. Can you all see me?
No.
No. I have to click through, sorry. No, I see your name. I don't see your face.
Ah, perfect, there we go, video. Is that working now?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect, okay, good. Hello, everyone. My name is Edward Kuchma, if you can see me. We're here together with, I believe, 6 different associations and 6 leaders of different associations. That includes, Mr. Sang, what's your association?
Chinese Cultural Art Association.
Chinese Cultural Art Association. And then Chinese. Anliang. Keep it easy. Anliang. And then let's keep going along. Go ahead.
Young Families Association.
Beautiful.
Full Generation Foundation.
Okay.
William Shu from Nearby Chinese Association.
Perfect. Let's keep going along. New generation.
Non-Chinese Consolidated Phenomenal Association. I'm from Malaysia Association.
I'm from American Cultural.
Okay, so everyone can hear. We've got quite a lot of association leaders here with us today, and we are deeply concerned about 70 Mulberry and the state of 70 Mulberry, and we are, as associations and association leaders, very concerned that the associations and the cultural and the community join together to make sure that 70 Mulberry functions as a community center, an art center, a cultural center, and that cultural aspect back into 70 Mulberry. And that is an extremely, extremely important point. You know, perhaps since we have a lot of Chinese folks, we can have someone speaking Chinese. Mr. Sang, why don't you speak a couple of words? You're perfect. Why don't you? This is Mr. Sang. Please, Mr. Sang, why don't you say a couple
Chinese
words?
Cultural Art Association. I've been a long time in Chinatown. With the long time in this community, we need the community center or culture center. What we need is community. But for so long, and for the reason, and for the people who live over here, we don't have nowhere to go for the center of the culture and exhibition and business exhibition. That's that building. There's only one place for the community, the development place. Yeah, this is we have the chance today, and we can expand what we need. And with the building, we can build 24 or 18 floor, 60,000 square feet for the community association use. Other rest can be the affordable building, affordable apartment. That's the most we want to.
And does anyone else want to add to that? We're all in agreement, right? CCP and all also.
Thank you, Edward.
I'm sorry, our time a little bit just because we have so many associations here. Maybe you want to come back to us, or can we keep going?
Yeah, we'll come back to you, and it seems you're talking about needs, and we'll come back to it later. Susan, do you want to go next?
Let me put myself on mute then. Please do come back to us. We have quite a few associations here.
Definitely.
So I want to speak as a preservationist and also as someone who had worked for the city as a former public official at the Department of Cultural Affairs, where I had funded H.T. Chen, the Chen Dance Center, and the Museum of Chinese and Americas. So, and also my father, he went to PS 23 years ago in, you know, in the 30s, and understanding the importance of this building as a community center. So, you know, the gentleman who spoke about having an arts and community center and senior center is so important to Chinatown and to any community, but this is really the heart. And so in terms of preserving what is left of the building, I think is critically important as being recognizable to the community, and also to not just the community, but to other visitors who come to see what Chinatown is all about. So having something that is part of the context, I think, Brianna, is extremely important. And I understand returning the existing tenants is also critically important because they provided such essential services. So how do we work with DCAS, who is the administrative agency in terms of moving forward and making sure that the existing structure that's remaining is protected as we approach another winter season. So I would advocate for preservation, not to say that there can't be new uses, new configurations of spaces, that you know, we are really smart designers, and that this is possible. And to have a transparent process that is really critical to getting many people involved in this effort.
Thank you, Susan. Returning tenants to the building is definitely a priority of DCAS, and I have noted down the other, and we're also recording this. Would Linda want to go next? Linda Jones?
Oh, yes, yes. I'm chair of the CB3 Landmarks Committee, and also vice chair of the Land Use Committee. The Land Use Committee, in its resolution a few months ago, asked that DCAS do a preservation assessment of the building. They have so far declined to do so. I'm not sure why, because it might just put an end to this discussion in a sense, because that assessment will tell us what can be preserved, what the costs are, and then we can go forward. Until we have that information, yes, my preference is full preservation. I understand and I know from prior experience that there are lots of buildings where there has been a saving of the facade and a very modern interior placed inside it. So it doesn't mean they can't have a space tailored to their current modern needs. I think that is should be a priority. But let's get that assessment done so we can talk with some facts in their hands.
Carrie, would you want to go next?
Thank you. This is Carrie Culhane, and I'm an architectural historian and was the person who wrote the Chinatown and Little Italy National Register nomination. So I have a great love of this building, both for its architecture and for its history. Its history to Chinatown and its history to New York City. And I think in this activity, one thing that strikes me as sort of setting us up to fight is the polarity that's presented in saying full preservation versus full demolition, because given what remains of the building and given what Mei Li has said about how important it is for what's happening on the inside, and what Richard Moses has said about how important it is that, and I think a few people have said that you can have a modern building on the inside, Linda just said this, and maintain the exterior. I don't think anyone can call this a full preservation. And so by setting up these polarities, it's sort of pitting one side against the other, where I think we all want the same thing, which is a fully functioning modern facility for the community organizations of Chinatown, but one that is contextual to the street and one that represents Chinatown's history. And I think that there is enough left of the exterior envelope to achieve sort of everyone's goals, and including the fact that it may even accelerate the timeline to return people to the building if we are already working with some remnant of exterior envelope that can be preserved. So I want to say that the polarity that's set up here is not necessarily helpful, but that we are all, I think, seeking very similar return of this building to community use. Thank you.
Fanny, would you want to go next?
Yeah, I just want, hi, my name's Fanny. I'm a member of the community. I grew up in the area. And I just want to second what Linda Jones has said about the assessment. I mean, I think that assessment is one key to all of this. I mean, this whole process is pretty much moot if we don't have that assessment report. Because if we have that assessment report, we would know whether we can do a full preservation or we need a full demolition. All of this would be unnecessary. And yeah, that's what I have. So that's all I have to say so far.
Yeah, I think the community meetings point to your what you said is also to align on aspirations and needs, and it's not just for the people who have an architectural understanding of the building, it's also for the larger community. But point taken, preservation assessment is needed to understand, at least on the technical aspect, what could be done and what could not be done. So we're now going back in the loop. Richard, do you want to speak next? Richard?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yeah, I just want to reiterate what's been said in favor of preservation so far, and also in terms of the very dynamic modern use of the interior to make sure that the tenants' needs are being met. And I'm an architect, I see a preservation architect, and often you have very, very dynamic buildings that are designed both with the idea that the community gets to enjoy, the wider community gets to enjoy a beautiful building, a beautiful handcrafted building with techniques that are not really very much available to us anymore. Beautifully carved stonework, beautifully laid brickwork, and at the same time to employ, the best of modern architecture, the most high-tech kind of resources that you can muster to provide the best working, best functioning interior that you can get. So that's what, and it actually makes for a much more interesting building than just a modern building. And then I want to speak a little bit to the idea that's been floated of having a high-rise building on this site, which I think will really be to the detriment of the whole sensibility of Chinatown as being a long-standing community of really representing a cultural history that continues to the present day. And 20-story building will stick out like a sore thumb on that site and will throw shadows onto the park and onto the streets around it. There will really be a detriment. So that there may seem to be some, a benefit to putting some affordable housing on this site. Although, there's never a guarantee when these residential buildings are built that the affordable housing will be actually a significant percentage of the apartments that are constructed. But there's certainly better sites for affordable housing than on this site, which is really culturally, architecturally, urbanistically, probably the most important site in Chinatown. So again, kind of tearing the fabric of Chinatown's architectural and historic and cultural history with a big building going up will also have an economic impact in that the restaurants and the shops that have been there, and I know they really are suffering today, but I think you'll have even less foot traffic come back when COVID is gone, if you have a situation where you're starting to dominate the area with high-rise buildings. So I think that keeping a low-scale building, respecting the existing fabric that we have left is really the most sensible way to proceed in a lot of aspects.
So when you say high-rise, what's the range you say is feasible within the current context?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So what are the number of stories that is feasible with the current context? Would you say up to 8 or up to 10? When you say high-rise, do you say it has reached beyond 10 or at 20?
Well, I would want to see a study to determine, that. But our feeling at the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative is that the building should be built back up to the height it was at previously. And if you can get some more massing at the back of the building that is not obstructive of the architecture of the original massing of the building, then that would be the way to go. So you can probably, squeeze out some more square footage in the building by taking that approach. But having a taller building on site really would be very distracting to the kind of the physical and historical nature of the community.
Colin, would you like to go next?
Yes, okay. I totally agree with Linda and Robert about the assessment coming out after the community engagement process, because we really have nothing to base this whole conversation on. But more importantly, the building is more than the 5 tenants. Everyone is crybabying, oh, the 5 tenants, oh my God. The building represents the community. The 5 tenants are nonprofits that can go insolvent depending on the next generation of leadership. So this building belongs to the community, and it should be restored only as a community use building. When you add affordable housing to the mix, you're opening up a whole nother Pandora's box of safety concerns. Now, the Chinatown Manpower Project had cooking classes in there where they use gas or propane. So now we have safety issues involving the tenants. All right, now they may want to offer vocational courses in welding or whatever. All right, now we have safety concerns there. So this should not include any kind of affordable housing in the equation. And I also find the CB3 resolution, the one line where the building, when restored or rebuilt, would be administered by a community-based organization. I find that very problematic because that opens it up to nepotism and favoritism here, right? I believe this whenever the building is rebuilt, it should be administered in perpetuity by the city. Also, when we're talking, we're saving 2 exterior walls and we're building along on top of that. All right, now a local architect, Philip Poon, sent me some renderings today. Right, he gave a rendering where we saved the 2 stone walls and the rest is a red brick with larger windows to let the sunlight in. All right, now he only took it up 5 stories. I would like to see that actually go up 10 or 11 stories so we can incorporate a desperately needed gymnasium, full floor gymnasium, a performance space for the community where many of our arts and cultural groups can hold performances, or we can hold screenings of documentaries or whatever. And we can even incorporate a health club for everyone's use. Right? If the basement allows, and when they do excavation for the new foundation, put in a swimming pool. But this should remain a community use space. And let's leave out that affordable housing thing. We do need affordable housing in the neighborhood, but let's find another site for it. Because this just throws another wrench into the works. Thank you.
Susan, would you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. So, another thing, Priyana, that is coming into play is the rezoning of Soho and thinking about sites for affordable housing. This is going to present an opportunity for all the nearby neighboring neighborhoods to really engage in other building sites and having an opportunity to provide those kinds of resources. So I'd say that we need to look at the larger context, and I understand that we're looking specifically at this site, but we should also consider what is happening in other parts of Lower Manhattan.
When you say resources, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So the CHPC and other housing organizations are really taking an active interest in looking at affordable housing and are very concerned about what is available and what sites are available and incentivizing the type of housing that I think some of the groups here were talking about. And I'm not,
I'm here as an advocate for preserving the building and also for preserving community uses, but I also recognize the need in this neighborhood for affordable housing. You're making my husband is making a lot of noise. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So I'm hoping that it's not, that you're not hearing it. So I would really ask that, you know, that we also join with other community organizations and that can be helpful in this analysis and what is best and what is best for this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Edward, would you want to go next?
Yes, okay, yes. Again, we've got many different associations here with us. Ian, who'd like to go next?
CCPA.
Good, come on. Can you see us okay?
Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm Chinese Secretary at the CCBA, Chinese Consultant Benevolent Association. So we have a joint statement and signed by our CCBA and 7 traditional organizations in Chinatown who has established a central goal. And then, so there's 2 major directions from our input. As number one is to demolish the building and to rebuild it. And number 2 is to restore the current structure and add 2-story on top of the current foundation. So for the detail of this joint statement, if you're interested, anybody who's interested, so they can contact us via email at ccbastaffs@gmail.com or by phone at 212-226-6280. So we can send you the copy of this joint statement for your reference.
Kelly, can you read that again? Can you say that again? Slower.
Okay, yeah. So we have a joint statement and signed by CCBA, Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, with 7 key traditional organizations in Chinatown who has established a central goal. So include the 7 key traditional organizations include Lincoln Association, Huisan Niyang Association, and Enliang Merchants Association, with which we have president here. And then we have Gibson Association, Chinese Chamber of Commerce, and Chinese Freemasons, and also Kuomintang Eastern regions.
Mm-hmm.
So in Chinatown, more than a century, and they can present the Chinese American community in different fields, and they also provide community like a different like social service to the public. So we think this is joint statement signed by them. They have 2 major directions regarding their input to the rebuilding 70 Mulberry Street. So number 1 is to demolish the building and to rebuild it. And then on this joint statement, we have explained the detail on how to our recommendation how to rebuild the building. And then number 2 is to restore the current structure and to add 2-story on top of the joint statement. So you can send us the email ccbastaffs@gmail.com. So we can send you a copy of our joint statement.
Thank you for that. When you say add 2 stories, what is the kind of programming do you see in that, or what is the kind of use what do you visualize in those 2 stories?
So we give like suggestions. So maybe we can, for example, one of the organization who was there before the fire is like Chen Dance Center. So we can have a performance space for Chen Dance Center to continue to promote the community culture. So we can have 1 story for like a performance center, like culture center. Mm-hmm. This is our example that we gave. We put on the joint statement, and also we can also suggest we can have affordable like senior housing.
Mm-hmm.
So for more detail, so we can share the joint statement. Just send me the email. Just I mentioned ccbastaffs@gmail.com.
Thank you. May, do you want to go next?
Again, before I get off, though, we do have additional associations that do want to speak, so
And
please come.
yeah, we'll come back to you, definitely, Edward. Millie, do you want to speak?
Oh no, I forgot to put down my hand. I'll put it down now.
Okay.
It was from the first time.
All right. Fanny? Fanny? Eric? Colin?
Hi, this is Eric. I'm sorry, I've unmuted my.
All right, Eric, you go first.
I want to say that I particularly, first of all, I'm an architect and urban planner. Interested in
Hello?
engaging the community.
Hello?
You need to mute your, hey, host, you need to mute whoever that.
I just muted the person, and sorry, the person who just joined, I can't see your name. You joined through phone, and we'll unmute you later. Go ahead.
This is Eric. I want to repeat that I agree with Carlin particularly that it should serve many cultural groups. I also want to mention that there's an issue of time as well, that people want to get return in a timely fashion. So as an architect and as an urban planner, and as mentioned earlier, there may be an opportunity by saving what the building is there, that you could reduce the time. So that's one reason why that engineer survey of preservation is important, to find that it improves the timeline by keeping what was described as a beautiful stonework, which I certainly agree. And I think the stonework maintains the character of the Chinatown streetscape. It also widens out the sidewalk as you get to the corner. So I'm in favor of holding the stone base if it helps with the construction timeline and gets people back. Also, people have been talking about very tall buildings, 20 stories. I want to put on the table as an architect that if you go more than what is required, allowed per the zoning code, then you start getting into a EULA process, which will add an additional layer of review and input and delay the return of people. So I'm an advocate, having studied the zoning, what is possible as of right, to stay within the as of right envelope, which would be a 6-story high street wall. And then you could set back and build the additional available square footage at a 20-foot setback. And that'll end up being about an 8 to 9-story building, but much more efficient layout, much more modern inside. So if that would be possible, I think it would serve many cultural groups, more than just the 5, and the spaces could be designed for their particular uses, not shoehorned in the old footprint. That's what I have to say.
Colin?
Okay, I'd just like to add something. You know, we've wasted quite a few months here already. The preservation analysis could have been done 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and been ready for this community processing hearing. But then again, you know, like no matter how we proceed, whether you know what can be saved, we're still the clock is ticking. There is no money for this. Even though de Blasio said it was $80 million, you know, even if that was written in stone, all you need to do is sandblast. We're still in a pandemic. Coming out of this pandemic, you know, the money can be transferred to use for another emergency use somewhere. So I think time is of the essence here. We need to get those shovels in the ground and stop this back and forth about, you know, affordable housing or whatever. Let's rebuild this building back and return it to the community. Then now, affordable housing is necessary, but let's find another site for that. We can't be the community can't be forced to trade off on this and fight for this indefinitely, or else this parcel of land will be sold to the highest bidding developer because the city has no money to build on this.
Edward?
Okay, back on. All right, Next, here we go. One more comment.
Oh, yes. My name is Robert Chen. I'm the founder of American Asian Culture Center of Chewbacca, and I've been serving the community for the past 16 years, full time, since September 11. And then I've been paying over $10,000, $20,000, moving from one place to another, over 7 locations for the past 16 years. And I caught Margaret during the COVID-19, and I said, I'm tired, and I need a place like this for the community. And I'm not young anymore, so I don't want to fight for anything, and I want to teach, also I'm an instructor for table tennis and also film for the kids. So I've been teaching for the kids how to make movie, because I admire that most of the seniors living here, so I want to make I think they deserve a theater in Chinatown that they show in the documentary and film. So I think that's the most important. And secondly, we have a performing like Broadway show theater. So they deserve to enjoy the show. Because the whole life in the community, without, believe me, 99%, I would say, they never go to Broadway. So I think they, thank you.
Do you want another one of our associations to speak, or do you want to come back to us?
No, sure. Why don't another person speak from your side? Yeah.
Come on, we'll get William Su from the Myanmar Association.
Hi, yeah, my name is William Su from the Myanmar Chinese Association, and I've been living in this neighborhood for almost 50 years. And I agree with Colin Chen. We really need the community center. So I hope that will work. So we could, I believe that we also need the affordable houses, but this location, I think we should definitely have that community center. This is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want us to keep going? We've got a few more for you.
Sure, I see no raised hands. We have another 5 minutes here before we move to another activity.
Okay, perfect. We'll keep lining them up and keep shooting them at you. Yeah.
My name is David Fu from Fu Generation Foundation. I'm pretty agree. Son of Carrie, they talking about that 70 Mulberry Street should be let the community use only, not for the affordable housing. For the affordable housing, they should looking for somewhere else. I living in New York over 50 years. Since I coming to New York, Mulberry 70 is already using for community use only. Thank you.
All right, next. No, sure. MAA? And anyone else? Anyone say a word for MAA? Go ahead. Malaysia Association.
Hi, my name is Amy, and I'm representing MAA. I think the community service for them to have a place to celebrate, to recognize the Chinese culture is very important. I have been hearing or being told that all the association, they have to pay money for themselves to rent a tiny place to pay a big rent. I think this is a good opportunity for rebuilding for the space for the community use. And Mr. Robert is right. We do need theater, we do need some space to show our culture. Chinese culture is really important. So I hope this will happen, and thank you for your help. Thank you.
Philip, do you want to go next? I'm going to shift to other participants now.
I think you can. I think we're done with our speakers, right? I think you don't have to come back to us. So I'll say thank you. Again, these are many different associations. Our location right now is at 105 Mulberry, so we're about a block away from 70. And we are here to, again, promote the idea that the community groups, the community associations want 70 Mulberry for communities, the community itself. I'll put myself on mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Philip, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi. Can you see me or hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I'm looking at you. So I'm Philip Poon. I'm an architect kind of in the area. My dad is also an architect in the area. I think what people don't want is a giant glass hotel that serves, you know, $25 cocktails for tourists from out of state. And I kind of, to build upon the last point from the woman, I forgot her name, I think it's important to have kind of pride of place in Chinatown. And Chinatown is facing these contemporary issues of gentrification, displacement. But even beyond that, it's kind of a pride of place and what it means to be Chinese in America or Chinese American can be reflected in the building. And I think this goes into what you were talking about between full demolition versus full preservation. There's a reality here that CBJ Snyder built this building at a time when that area was predominantly Italian. So I think the building should honor this history that everyone has such fond memories of, but should reflect this contemporary Chinese American Chinatown experience also, because that's the kind of biggest issue for me, for my generation. And what I see is the key to the Chinatown survival is kind of pride of place, pride of culture, and everything else will kind of follow from that.
Mm-hmm. Fanny, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I just want to mention needs that would be services for 70 Mulberry Street is administrative services, like a place where the community can go to, I don't know, file Social Security, you know, administrative services like Section 8 services, Medicaid, all that. I mean, it needs like one place where people in Chinatown can go to. That's one of the suggestions that I have for that.
Mm-hmm. Colin, do you want to go next?
Okay, you hear me? Yeah, I just want to put on a record that I think the city just rushed into demolishing what was there. The fire damage was not that bad to start with. Okay, they could have restored it. The tenants could have moved back in by now. All right, so I don't know what the city has in plan for this building or what this whole process is about, but let's get those shovels in the ground.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? I don't have any other hand raised. I see Edward and I see Colin, and you both spoke. We have another 2-3 minutes on this activity. I do want to understand the aspiration side as well, besides the needs and the frustrations and the pain points that you've expressed in this meeting. But as we're going through these polarities that we've set, and for the purpose so that we can meet a middle ground, would you want to go a little deeper into these? Would you want to say what should be it in terms of, like, if we are talking preservation, is it just the stone walls? Are there other elements that you think you would want to preserve? And that's given the fact that preservation assessment is needed to fully understand, but within your knowledge, do you think there are other elements that needs to be preserved? Colin, do you want to go?
Yeah, okay, so speaking as an alumni, all right, I went to PS 23 there in 1962, I think it was. Okay, so I've been walking by this building. I live just down the block. I've been walking by this building well over 60 years now. All right, so I mean, I have emotional attachment to the building. I went to school there. I know many generations of Chinese who have gone to school there, and it's always heartening to see people coming by, dragging their grandkids and say, hey, Daddy went to school there back in 19 whatever. All right, but I'm willing to let go of that. I mean, if the building cannot, if the lower level cannot be preserved, all right, let's build it back the way it looked. All right, let's not put a glass and steel tower there. Like, we do not want a generic looking building like we see in Midtown, where if there were no street signs, you had no idea where you were standing. All right, we do not want something that's totally out of context with this neighborhood. Let's put back, stonework, new stonework, but let's build it back the way it looks, and not put a steel and glass tower there.
Mm-hmm. Susan, do you want to go next?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So as a preservation architect, and not speaking from my family association with this building, I have worked on, and as a public official, I had also worked on any number of buildings that were in way worse shape. How can I ever say that this looks pretty bad? But how can the rusticated brownstone, sandstone base and the brickwork that's remaining, appears to be right now in stable condition. And so I think the importance, Priyana, you asked, preserving what elements of the building. So in terms of preserving the brick tower, preserving the rusticated stone base, and also whatever brickwork is remaining. It would be great if they, if the decision is to preserve what's left or rebuild in the manner of, it would be also great to understand what some of the, the window openings or some of the other details that are remaining. And this is why having that preservation assessment is so critical. What of the original building fabric still remains?
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage that. But it's not only the masonry, the brick, the stonework, it's also the brickwork and whatever other decorative elements were not destroyed in the fire.
Carrie, do you want to go next?
Thank you. And I am seconding everything that Susan just said, and would only add emphasis to that, because I want another vote in that column that at a minimum, I think that restoring what is there and understanding what is there, obviously, because we need a preservation assessment, are both critical to understanding where we could go. And at a minimum, sort of maintaining that sort of massing and scale and fenestration to maintain the texture of the street wall in Chinatown.
Eric, do you want to go next?
Sure. I just wanted to also mention, it was said earlier that the existing stonework would be very, very hard and expensive to try to replicate. It really is unique to its time. So, and also as an architect who has done many adaptive reuse projects, the stonework is in very good condition. The structure most likely is sound. It's probably resting directly underneath. So I think you have a very, very good chance of saving the stonework. I'm also in favor of saving the brick tower. I think it is a very unique tower. It is also Snyder's work, who is a very notable architect of its time. And I think there would be a way to adaptively reuse it if it's structurally sound. Those are my two priorities with the preservation.
Richard, would you want to speak next?
Yeah, I also agree with what's been said, and that a preservation assessment again is going to help us in this area. Although I feel that our priorities should be the exterior envelope, especially the street walls, including the stonework and the brick above it. If there are other details on the interior that should be considered, I think that's great. But our priority for the interior is making sure that the needs of the tenants, both the existing tenants and any future tenants are being met, and that the new space is adaptable and modernized as necessary. So, you know, it's sort of a dual focus between the exterior and the interior.
Mm-hmm. So with that, it seems everyone has spoken. Can we move to the activity that we'd actually designed as the first activity? We went straight into the conversation, and this activity is really to understand, like, step beyond the technical issues that we were talking, the preservation issues that we're talking about. And really, given that most of you have expressed that it is beyond the 5 tenants, it's something for Chinatown community. So we have 2 sentences here. In 2030, 70 Mulberry Street is known for, and then in 2030, Chinatown residents are proud of 70 Mulberry Street because, and it's really to understand what your aspirations for this building are and what it could stand for in the future. And like, we have some examples, but these are for references only. It could be culture related, it could be livelihoods and workforce development related, but it could be something else too. So if you can take a minute to reflect and then share what you think it could be. Michelle?
Yeah, I would say that 70 Mulberry Street is known for its creative, adaptive reuse of the historic 1892 building and servicing the cultural and social service needs of the Chinatown community.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I
Eric?
guess,
sorry, go on. Who was that?
well, I would say also that sort of adding on what Mitchell's saying, that the building is really is known for being a beacon in the neighborhood, an architectural and historic beacon where people walking by will notice the beautiful historic craftsmanship and you know, the wonderful proportions of the building, and at the same time, it will be a beacon because of all of the community uses that reside in there. So it's really a focal point of the community in the best sense of the word.
Mm-hmm. Colin, would you want to go next?
Yeah, the building has been, in the past couple of decades, been sort of a focal point, but it wasn't very welcoming to visitors. Visitors were always curious to the programming inside, but it wasn't really very open. So I would see in the future we can incorporate more programming and make it a Chinatown Welcome Center, maybe on the ground floor somewhere. You know, just to introduce visitors to the area, to the history of the area. You know, we can expand the programming beyond the 5 tenants that were there before the fire. Okay, so you know that's really needed. There is no focal point in Chinatown, and this building has served as the focal point of Chinatown, right? In the historical core of Chinatown. And I would like to see that, you know, maintained in the future and expanded.
Susan, do you want to go next?
Sure, thank you, Priyana. I'd say that in 2030, 70 Mulberry is known for being the cultural heart of Chinatown.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Richard, do you want to go next?
Oh, sorry, I already.
You already said, sorry.
I had to lower my hand.
May, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so in 2030, my hope is that 70 Mulberry Street continues to be a place where new immigrants can learn how to thrive in this community. And also, in addition to that, I think a lot of young people, especially like fourth generation, fifth generation Chinese, have come back to the community to start businesses. So it would be a place for them too as well. And maybe they can all, you know, incubate together in the building.
And Edward, do you want to go next?
Yes, sorry, we're coming. Here we go. Okay, Amy's going to sum up. Again, we've got 7 or 8 different associations. So Amy, why don't you come up and say a few words?
Anybody wants to add anything before I represent all of
This
the
is what we hope 70 Mulberry will be.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to say some last thing about my feelings and all the Chinese American feelings about this building. We will hope that in the future, Chinatown will be Chinatown. Today, Chinatown is like a dead town. After 911, everybody knows that it's like a zombie town. Right now, 7:30, it's all quiet, it's closed, and when you look at it, you feel upset about it. If we don't do something for the Chinese community here, Chinatown will be gone forever, which we don't hope this happen. So for this opportunity that we have a chance to rebuild it or bring in more Chinese and especially younger generation and keep on the Chinese culture and go on and so on. And I think everybody here agrees with me.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Eric, did you speak?
No, I'm going to stick with the headline format.
Okay.
In
Eric,
2030, 70 Mulberry Street will be known for as a beautiful and welcoming place to go for culture and community in Chinatown. And in 2030, Chinatown residents are proud of 70 Mulberry Street because the city did it right. It kept its promise. It listened to the community. It supported the community. It fully funded the project. And the payback for this project will be when Chinatown has its resurgence and visitors come back in droves to New York City. And when they come to New York City, they always stop at Chinatown. That's what the city should support.
All right. Anyone else? Lisa, would you want to speak up? Anyone from the advisory committee? I open it up. Everyone has spoken from the group. If you want to participate in this.
I would say that we haven't spoken much about the potential for a historic site like this to be a tourist attraction. So I would say that we would expect in 2030 that 70 Mulberry Street will be a tourist attraction, and I hope that it will contain something that tourists can partake of, exhibits, programs that people can take part in who are not actually Chinatown residents and want to learn more.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I think that to echo Susan's point about the cultural heart of Chinatown, it's so critical to have a space for the creative community to present their work. There is no other black box theater in Chinatown. It's the only theater in Chinatown. And there's so much talent and cultural treasure in the community that it is really important to have that space for the community, by the community, of the community.
So maybe since we've all spoken up, maybe I will ask you, and we have some time, right? Maybe go a little deeper, and maybe we should unpack. When we say community space, I've heard culture, right? Beside culture, are there other needs that come to your mind, other aspirations you see for the community? Colin?
Yes, you must, since you're taking notes, you must have put down a full floor gymnasium, a full floor performance space,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe artist law for artists to work out of.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I did know.
Yeah, we can accommodate that by adding extra floors through a variance without triggering a ULURP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Edward?
Sorry, coming on. And Mr. Sang would like to speak about, in a little more depth, about cultural uses. Mr. Sang.
Yeah, in Chinatown, this area, we have 5,000 small business. So we have nowhere to go to meeting or exhibition. That's the culture center we can use for like exhibition and meeting and any business production into deal of all the industrial products. That's a community center we can use it for many different ways. Yeah, to help the small business too, and also all the Chinese Cultural Association, and we can link up together and at the exhibition and that's we have this community that's so important.
May?
We have would like to speak, please. Please, please.
Hi, my name is Robert Chen. Like I said, the cultural value that we have that
take it off.
we need to teach the kids well, because most of the immigrants, the parents like me, I grew up, my parents never teach me. My mother never teach me. So I learned it from school. I learned it from myself. So I went to NIU for my documentary film. I went to FIT for my advertising and photography. So I want to give back to the community. I spent $2 million for learning how to make film, how to make sound, how to make audio, and also how to produce music. And also I have a whole team he's a Michael Jackson engineer, Jennifer Lopez producer. So my team can actually teach our community. So I'm talking about highest level in film and music. So I want to give it back to the community where I was 15 years old, came to America without a word of English. So I'm so lucky that I have an uncle that give me some tutor that raised me up. And I went to school, and went to high school. I went to Seoul Park High School. I was a wall-frame high school photographer. And I didn't have a diploma. I went to FIT directly without graduate. So can you imagine that I was sleeping in the classroom for a year and a half without a word of English, and I speak Cantonese only. That's my real story. And I went during the September 11th. I was there saving the firefighters. I was there from before 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock at night. My documentary you can Google, Robert Chen 911. That's why I give free documentary film. And I want one more. During the COVID-19, since during COVID-19, my culture center, I'm facing $20,000 for the rent. And I never stop. Since the COVID-19, I make the wrapping food, I sold it to my friends. I make the $10,000 pay my landlord, and they're not happy. So I'm take up the court and fight for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I need a center that our community that really need it. The reason I call Margaret Chen, I say I'm tired because I'm facing 20,000, 10,000 every month because the community that really need it. Trust me. All right? So we set up a lot of people lucky like me because I'm a very motivated person. I'm from nothing to learn everything. But it's not everyone have a motivation like me. So we need to raise our community that who need help.
Definitely, definitely. May, would you want to go next?
I just like to say technology.
Technology.
Yeah.
And can you unpack that a little bit? When you say technology, what do you mean?
Maybe a place where, you know, the public or community members can access technology. Maybe a place where they, where store owners or young people or artists can get training in using technology to further whatever their goals are.
Eric, do you want to go next?
I want to repeat what May had said earlier about services for immigrants and people coming back who want to reinvest. And also, I'd like to see a space for the visual arts. I don't think that's been mentioned. And I would love to see something that provides a space for food or cuisine arts. Maybe there's a way of doing demonstration kitchen where different restaurants can come and show off their work to visitors. Maybe that's a way of publicizing. And I certainly think that a multi-purpose room could have many functions, such as community use as well as theater use. So there may be a way of having a space that does many things at once or several things.
Susan, would you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. You know, as people are talking about these other uses, and Eric, you know, I feel like food is at the heart of our Chinese culture. Who doesn't love getting together from dim sum? But at the same time, I think, you know, it would be great to have like a library here, or, you know, thinking about the way that libraries bring people together and offer resources in terms of information. So I think about the Flushing Library as like an example where they have a theater for simultaneous translation. They have computers where new immigrants and people from the community can come and learn how to use various technology, and also, you know, that there are the ability to bring performances and other kinds of uses. So just really bringing it all together, and what kind of new institution can this be? I mean, it's almost like the school is revived as a school where we're learning new things in new ways.
Eric?
I forgot to take my hand down, but I agree with Susan, you know, if there's a way to tap into other budgets, you know, library wants to kick in money, that's terrific. I am concerned about where the money's coming from. Maybe that should be somehow.
Are there other considerations that come to your mind besides the money?
Oh, I'll put my hand down. I think all the ideas here are great. I think, you know, the idea that it should be more than the 5 groups, I agree with. If there's space, and it seems like we're leaning toward a place where there's a large enough space for more activities, I think it strengthens the cultural heart if there's more than just the 5.
Colin? You're on mute, I think.
Oh, sorry. All right, so let's add exhibition space for that. You know, where artists can display their works, hold you know, art brings people into the neighborhood, right? So, you know, we need some exhibition space for the artists to display their works outside of the performance center, right? Let's keep the two separate.
Carlin, I'm sorry to jump in, but I remember my aunt used to come for painting. She was a senior, and They always had exhibitions that I would go to as a young girl.
All right. I will wrap this meeting up, but I would first want to just leave the floor open for any last comments, any suggestions. We heard you loud and clear. A preservation assessment is needed ASAP. If not a preservation assessment, at least a cap is needed to preserve or like keep safe what is already there that can be preserved. So that
I
is
think we
very
need
loud and
both.
clear.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we need both a preservation assessment and protection of the existing building.
That seems like those 2 points seems to be the highest priority, is what I'm hearing. And then it seems that we've kind of met in the middle ground. There is the desire to preserve elements that can be preserved, but inside you're open to leave the space adaptable, flexible, modern. It serve the needs of the tenants, but it needs to go beyond and be a community space as well. And then as we do the cons and pros, like we weigh these different uses, the considerations has to be money and time. And keep in mind that if we have to fit all these uses, the envelope still does not rise up to a point where it becomes insensitive to its current context. Right? Am I synthesizing it right? Is there anything you would like to add to that, Colin?
Yes, I'd like to add the, after this whole process is done and the advisory committee, the city agrees on how to move forward, I would like to see this, either the rebuilding or the restoration process be opened up to local builders, local architects and builders within the Chinatown community and not given to big revenue companies.
Mm-hmm. So local builders, local architects, people
and local
from
workers.
Local workers. Anything else anyone would want to add? No?
Those are lovely plants behind you.
Thank you so much. We do what we can do to survive this pandemic time, right? To create a garden around us. Edwin, do you want to?
Yeah, let me add two things real quick. Our group here, again, of associations in Chinatown and around Chinatown, really do want to stress the idea that we want community, art, music, theater. This is the most important thing that we want. Dance, all of that. So this is our stress.
And Kung Fu.
And Kung Fu, absolutely, and Kung Fu and martial arts and all of that. But this is our stress, the associations of Chinatown and Ping Pong want community culture at this space. This is our overriding. We represent here a lot of people. So this is very important. And our
so I heard two things. There needs to be a space for culture, arts and culture, and then there need to be a space for social gathering and sports and activities that can fit into the envelope, right?
That is absolutely correct. And let me add a very selfish note. You left off local lawyers. So I'll put that too.
I see you advocating already for the community. Colin, do you want to go? I see you raised your hand again.
I forgot to take my hand down. Sorry.
All right. So with that, then I'll just want to remind again, this is first of the community series of meeting. We will be following up with a survey, which we want to push far and wide. If anyone of you have access to certain groups, we would love to disseminate it through you as well, and not just through the advisory committee. Please write to info or write to me, let me know who you have access to. We can give you the outreach materials as well. Also, we would have a second round of meetings, as we discussed, as Isabella showed you in this slide deck. The first round of meetings was just was more to listen and understand where the community is. And we are having more meetings throughout the week. And then we'll go back to DCAS with, and synthesize all this information, go back to DCAS. We would circulate some building scenarios, but also considerations for programming and preservation issues that you raised up. And then we'll come back with options. The next round of meetings would happen in the second week of November, the November 9th week. And we would have one big town hall meeting where anyone can participate, just come in. And we still want to continue the workshop format because we feel it can help us co-design and co-develop, dive a little deeper into these scenarios. So we will also have the option for people to register for that. And you can register for both. You don't have to restrict yourself to just one. Susan, do you want to say something?
Brianna, would you share your email or contact information with us, because so that we can then be able to communicate with you directly? I think you said that you would share the timeline,
Yeah, I think my the invite went from my email, so you have it in your inbox,
right.
but I also shared it in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so feel free to share any documents you want us to consider, and we would love for you to be part of this outreach as well. If there are groups that you think we are not reaching, we would love you to be able to reach to them through you for the second round as well as the survey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Meetings.
到11月啦。
Leave meeting, huh?